Hi everyone, it's Lindsay. Welcome back to another video. Today I am sharing a very simple shaker card. Now, word of warning, this is a wedding shaker card. However, I know people aren't doing weddings right now, and that is the right thing to do, of course, but you can save this for reference for later on, or you can convert this into an anniversary card or an engagement card as well. So this is a square card. I'm doing 4¼ by 4¼ inch square card, but the panel I'm working on right now is 4 inches by 4 inches. I am going to go ahead and I cut out the center of that with a circle die. Then I'm going to stencil onto this panel and add a little bit of interest to this card front. I'm using the Ocean View stencil from the Crafter's Workshop. I love this stencil. It is gorgeous. I've used it before to show watercoloring with stencils. I will leave that video linked in the top right hand corner so you can go check it out. What I like to do is position my stencil and tape it down to the front. Then I flip it over, use some tape, and tape it down to the back. Now this is technically a mask, not a stencil, so you don't have a whole lot of room to work with. Just tape what you can and tape all 4 sides. That's going to help you keep everything in place as you're working on the front of it. Once you have all 4 sides taped, I like to go ahead and flip it back over, then remove the tape on the front. I have my card panel exactly the size I need it, but I'm not going to have any tape marks, and my stencil isn't going to shift around. Now for my shaker, I'm using this mix from Buttons Galore. Now I found the champagne gold modeling paste from the Crafter's Workshop matched the sequins and all the little bits and bobs in that mix. It matched some of those things that were in there really, really well. So that's what I'm using today. Now, the Crafter's Workshop has a ton of different modeling pastes. I do have a video all about their modeling paste, showcasing the different colors and just about the properties of them as well. I will leave that linked in the top right hand corner as well. This is pretty straightforward though. I'm using the champagne gold and just pushing it through the stencil with a palette knife. Now the trick with this is you just want to go with a nice smooth layer. And what I like to do is go in one direction with it. So here you can see I do turn my palette knife a little bit, but then I go right back over those areas with an up and down motion. That is going to make sure that this all has the same look to it. And if there are any little marks in it or lines from my palette knife, they are all going in the same direction. So it doesn't look really mix and matched, if that makes sense. So once I have it a nice even layer, I'm going to go ahead and remove that stencil and immediately either wash it or put it in a bowl of water. This will dry on your stencil and it will dry hard and it's not coming off. Once it's on there, it's on. So make sure you wash your tools, wash your stencil immediately, and set this aside to dry. Now, once this dries, it is gorgeous. I love the shine you get with this. It's not as shiny as, say, a foil, but it's still very shiny, and it has a ton of texture to it, which I love. It has dimension to it, too. Now, once it's dry, it's time to put together the shaker card. For this particular shaker, I am using this heat-safe acetate. However, I have recently, more recent that I made this video, found a different acetate that I like better than what I used here. So I'm going to leave that in my list below. It's called it's a Duralar film, and I like it better than what I used here. So I'm going to link that product below instead of what I used. It's still heat safe, the one I use now. You can still heat emboss on it, and you can put it through your laser printers, all that great stuff. I just like the thickness of it a little bit better. You get a bigger pack for less money, and I like the way it is packaged better as well. So I cut my acetate down to size so it would fit my little frame that I cut out with my circle, and then I put adhesive all the way around. Now I'm going to go ahead and lay my piece of acetate right over that opening. That is so important, and if you forget that step, you're not going to have a shaker. All your little pieces will fall out. I've done it one too many times, more than I care to admit, but remember that acetate. Then it's time to put on your foam. I like to build up 2 layers of my foam depending on what is going in it. So these shaker bits are a little bit thicker in some spots. Some of the pieces are a little bit thicker. So I'm using a double layer of foam. Now with your shaker, you want to make sure that all those foam pieces are touching so no pieces can escape through the sides. Then I put my embossing powder in there a little bit, just kind of ran that over the sides to keep the static out. Then it's time to fill the shaker. So I like to dump mine out into a little bowl, my mix, and then just use a baby spoon or your fingers and pick and choose what pieces I want. So with mixes like this, sometimes if you just dump straight from the bag, you won't get a nice mix of all the different pieces in this. So I like to dump it into a bowl and then pick and choose. Sometimes I'll go back in and add just little bits of pieces of what I feel there's not enough. And then when I'm happy with it, it's time to seal everything in. I like to use vellum if I have a white background. However, if you have a patterned paper background or you have a colorful background that you don't want to soften at all, use acetate on the back. I'm using vellum today because it's going onto that white background, that white card base. My card base measures 4¼ by 4¼ Now, whenever you put your adhesive on the back of that shaker, just make sure you avoid that opening area because the adhesive will show through. The only thing that was left to do now was add my sentiment. So I'm using an older die and stamp set from Inspired by Stamping. They are no longer around anymore, but I will leave something similar down in the description box below. What I did was die cut this happy die several times, about 5 times from white cardstock, and just layered them up one on top of the other. Then once I have that final layer on, I just let it sit under an acrylic block to dry and kind of compress those layers. That gives me that dimension, and I don't have to do any sort of adhesive on the back, a dimensional adhesive, which can be super hard on those intricate pieces. Now, for my stamp, I was not sure if I wanted to go with black or white. Here's a little trick. Stamp it on acetate. A piece of packaging would work, and lay it over wherever you are going to put your sentiment. I do this not only on shaker cards, but any card I make. And then that way I can choose what color of sentiment I want without having to mess up my entire card. I went ahead and chose white, and I use Stays On Pigment ink, which stamps really well on those non-porous surfaces. It's going to dry really, really well. Finally, I went ahead and placed that happy right above that using a little bit of liquid adhesive and then an acrylic block on top to make sure it's nice and compressed. And that is the card. So simple and easy once you get the hang of it. I know interactive cards can be intimidating. I'm still intimidated by some of them I see, but this is one of the easier ones and still one of my favorite kind of cards to give to people. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I want to thank you so much for watching. Happy crafting, everyone.